Welcome to Lesson 3 in the Energy Aware Planning System series. Now that we've learned how to shift our mindset and how to start tracking our energy, it's time to put that awareness into action. Today we're going to talk about how to match your tasks to your energy levels. This way you're not trying to do high effort tasks when you barely have the spoons to stand up. Because let's be honest, some tasks feel like you're about to scale Everest, and some tasks are as easy as swatting a fly, and knowing the difference makes all the difference. Let's start with the big picture. Why does it even matter if your tasks match your energy? Well, because if they don't, it's going to be like trying to microwave soup in a blender. I mean, you can try, but it's going to get pretty messy pretty fast, and no one's going to be happy with the results. Most of us go through the day with a to-do list that assumes we're operating on a full battery all the time, that we can think clearly, move efficiently, stay emotionally regulated, and remember all the steps in a process, without fail, every single day. But real life doesn't work like that. Especially for those of us dealing with burnout and neurodiversity and chronic illness. Some days your body just says no. Some days your brain fog rolls in like a thundercloud over a Buc-ee's parking lot. And some days your emotional capacity is at zero before you even open your eyes. When we ignore this reality and try to keep powering through, that creates friction. And too much friction leads to overwhelm and burnout. And then every task feels bigger than it should. Little things become huge deals. And suddenly even the easy stuff just becomes impossible. And the worst part is when we can't complete our to-do lists, it's not like we're sitting down and going, I don't think these tasks aligned with my energy today. No, we look at the list, we get angry, and we say, what is wrong with me? And I would hope by video 3, you understand that there is nothing wrong with you. What's wrong is the way we've all been taught to plan. The standard system of assuming that every task takes the exact same amount and type of energy, and also assumes that everyone's energy is the same and stable and steady. But clearly that's not true. Different tasks tap into different energy buckets: physical, mental, and emotional. And your energy in each of those buckets fluctuates. And that's why this idea matters. Because matching your tasks to your energy is not just a productivity hack. It's a form of self-respect. It's how you stop fighting yourself and start flowing with what your brain and your body are actually capable of. It creates momentum without pressure. Because progress doesn't always mean doing the hardest or the most urgent thing. Sometimes, instead of eating that frog first thing in the morning, we just need to do something that aligns with our current capacity. That way, you're still moving forward, but you're doing it without burning out or shutting down. And here's the part that most people miss. Aligning your tasks with your energy does not mean you're going to get less done. It means you're going to use your energy more efficiently, which actually helps you get more of the right things done with less resistance, less guilt, and less emotional fallout. So no, this isn't just about planning differently. It's about living differently. It's about working with yourself instead of constantly trying to override your needs. It's about seeing your energy as something to honor and respond to, not something to ignore or conquer. Now that we understand why this system matters, let's talk about how to actually work with your energy instead of fighting against it. And the key to doing that is learning how to categorize your tasks by the type of energy they require, not by how long they take or how important someone else thinks they should be. We talked about this in the last video, but I think it's important enough that I remind you. Most people plan their days by time. A 30-minute block for emails, an hour for errands, a few hours for work or appointments. But remember, time does not account for energy. A 15-minute conversation could leave you completely drained, while a 2-hour creative session could leave you energized. It all depends on what type of energy you're pulling from and whether or not you have that kind of energy when you try to do it. Remember, there are 3 main types of energy to consider: mental, physical, and emotional. Let's walk through each one real quick so you can start to recognize what your tasks actually ask of you. Mental energy is what we use for anything that requires focus, decision making, processing, or problem solving. Things like writing an email or doing research, troubleshooting a tech problem, or even planning your week. Even simple tasks can be mentally expensive, especially if they involve choices or concentration. Think things like making a grocery list, navigating medical paperwork, or trying to explain something clearly. For folks who are neurodivergent or in burnout or managing brain fog, mental energy might be the most limited resource that you have. You might only have a few good hours or minutes every single day. Tasks that require executive functioning, memory, or sequential thinking can eat up a big chunk of that energy more quickly than you realize. And that's why it's helpful to know in advance which of your tasks are mentally demanding. Physical energy is what it takes to move your body through the world. And that includes obvious things like exercise or cleaning your kitchen, but also subtle draining things like getting dressed or driving in heavy traffic or even just standing in line. Anything that involves stamina, coordination, or even just being upright for any length of time pulls from your physical energy tank. This bucket is especially important if you deal with chronic illness, pain, fatigue, or even sensory sensibilities. A task that looks easy on paper, like dropping something off at the post office, might actually require a ton of physical effort. You have to get dressed, you have to pack up the item, you have to drive there, you have to stand in line, you have to make conversation. That is not one task. That is a physical sequence, and every single step has a cost. Emotional energy is the one that is most often overlooked, but honestly, it might be the most impactful of all, because this is the energy that it takes to interact with other people, to set boundaries, to show up in a vulnerable way, and to process big feelings. It's also what gets drained when you're masking or people-pleasing, when you're navigating conflict, or when you're dealing with stress or overstimulation. Let's say you have to call your insurance company to fight a bill. That doesn't just require mental energy to explain the problem. It also requires physical energy to walk around your house and gather up all of the paperwork you're going to need. But it's also a massive emotional drain, especially if you are anxious or angry or already exhausted before the call even starts. Even if they're not going to take a long time, emotionally draining tasks can cost you more than almost anything else in your day. And again, this is why it becomes so important. When you begin to label your tasks by the type of energy that they require, you're no longer guessing. You're not assuming you can get X done easily because it's not going to take very long, or that you can quickly cross Y off the list because it looks easy. Instead, you start tuning into your actual energy landscape, and that is what makes this so powerful. So now that you've labeled your tasks by energy type, the next layer is figuring out the intensity of those tasks. And this part matters because not all mental tasks are created equal. Not all physical tasks require the same stamina, and not every emotional draining situation wipes you out in the same way. Some things nibble at your energy and other things steamroll it. If you've ever sat down to answer one email and felt fine, but then tried to write a more complicated one and totally wiped out, that is the difference in intensity. So let's talk about how to break these tasks down by intensity. And we're going to go low, mid, and high. And please remember that these labels do not signify how important a task is. They reflect how much energy it's going to cost you to complete them. This step helps you get even more specific when you plan your day. It also gives you permission to stop treating everything like it's equally doable, because it's not. Low intensity tasks. Low intensity tasks are usually the ones that you can do on autopilot. They don't require much movement or brain power or emotional stamina. These are the tasks that feel pretty neutral and sometimes even soothing. They're perfect for those low energy moments where you would still like to get something done, but you know you can't handle something huge. Let's go over some examples. Mental tasks could include tidying up your desk, copying notes, labeling folders, Physical tasks are things like matching socks, stretching in bed, or throwing away tissues. Emotional tasks would be watching a comfort video, texting a friend, listening to music that makes you feel safe. So these are your minimum effort, minimum stress tasks. You might want to build a list of these kinds of things so you can pull from it when you're running on fumes. That way you don't even have to think about what you're going to do because you already did that work ahead of time. Mid-intensity tasks. Mid-intensity tasks require more attention, more effort, or more engagement. They're not overwhelming on their own, but they're also not things that you want to pile up when your energy is fragile. These tasks work best when you're somewhat stable in at least one of your energy buckets. Some examples of these would be mental tasks like scheduling appointments, brainstorming content, or updating your budget. Physical tasks like vacuuming one room, cooking a simple meal, or running a short errand. Emotional tasks would be returning a voicemail, setting a soft boundary, or helping a friend process something mildly stressful. These tasks might take a little bit of momentum to get started. Sometimes they're fine if you've gotten enough rest. Sometimes they're doable if you break them into smaller pieces. The key here is flexibility. You can nudge yourself to do a mid-intensity task, but don't push if your brain or your body resists a little hard. Remember, that push is what leads to burnout. High-intensity tasks. High-intensity tasks are the things that take a lot out of you. Sometimes they're important. Sometimes they're even enjoyable, but they require planning and intention and energy reserves. Some good examples of these are mental tasks like plotting a book, studying for an exam, troubleshooting a big tech issue. Physical tasks like rearranging furniture, deep cleaning the bathroom, or grocery shopping at the store. Emotional tasks would be attending a difficult appointment, having a confrontation, or navigating grief. Here's the tricky part. What's a high-intensity task for one person might be low intensity for another. And even for you, it can change day to day. Grocery shopping might be no big deal on a Tuesday, but it feels like climbing Everest on a Friday. And that's why it's essential to assess your current energy and not just the task itself. When you recognize a task as high intensity, do not treat it like just another item on the list. Plan around it and protect your recovery time after it. Maybe you could even move a few other things off the schedule so you can handle that task with care. And if it turns out that it is just too much for that day, that is not failure. It's just useful data for next time. So now you've got two crucial pieces of insight: the type of energy a task pulls from and the intensity level it requires. When you layer those together, your to-do list stops being just a list. It becomes a map. You can match your current energy to the items that actually fit instead of trying to bulldoze your way through things that don't fit. Now let's talk about something that quietly drains your energy without ever bothering to show up in your planner. You don't see it coming, but suddenly you can't decide what to do next. You freeze in front of your refrigerator. You stare at your to-do list and just think, nope. You feel foggy and frustrated and stuck. That's decision fatigue, and it is one of the most common and least talked about energy leaks. Decision fatigue isn't just about being tired. It is about your brain reaching its limit for how many choices it can make in a day. And the thing is, most of us don't even realize how many decisions we make. From the moment we wake up, our brains start problem solving. What to wear, when to eat, whether we have time to take a shower, how to respond to that text we've been avoiding, what's for dinner, what task do I start with, and on and on and on. Each little choice adds up. And by the time we get to the things that we actually care about, our mental energy is already zapped. What makes decision fatigue so sneaky is that it doesn't announce itself. It just shows up as avoidance and procrastination, forgetfulness, irritability, or even a complete zone out. Suddenly, everything feels hard, even things that should be easy. That is not because you are lazy or broken. It's because your brain is tired of making choices. It has nothing left to give. And the worst part is the effects aren't just limited to your mind. When mental energy runs low, emotional energy follows. You might start doubting yourself. You might start feeling guilty for not being productive. You might start getting snappy at the people that you care about. Even your physical energy can start to crash because your body is reacting to that mental strain like a physical stressor. Your shoulders get tense and your breathing gets shallow. You might feel heavy or wired or completely drained. And this is what happens when all three energy types get pulled into that spiral. And for people with ADHD or chronic illness or depression or fatigue or pain, this hits even harder because you're not just making regular everyday decisions. You're often filtering those choices through extra layers of things like executive dysfunction, pain management, sensory processing, or emotional regulation, which means you hit the limit faster and the crash comes sooner. So while the world around you is telling you to just make a decision and move on, for you, that decision is an energy transaction, and it costs so much more than people realize. So what do we do with that information? How do we stop this quiet drain from eating up our day? First, we stop expecting ourselves to make endless decisions all the time. There's no prize for choosing everything from scratch every single day. If your brain is tired, the most supportive thing that you can do is to remove the friction. That means building small routines, pre-deciding simple things, and using tools that lighten your cognitive load. For example, take a look at your planner for tomorrow and pick 1 or 2 priorities, not 5. Don't reorganize your entire schedule. You just need a starting point. You just don't want to wake up to a giant puzzle. This way you'll already know where to begin. Another thing that helps is building little menus. Not food menus, although those can help too, but I'm talking about choice menus. Think of it like this. When your emotional energy is down and everything feels like too much, you can look at a list that you made earlier that says, here are 3 things that I can accomplish when I feel like this. Maybe it's as simple as a 5-minute walk. Maybe it's putting in your earbuds and cranking your favorite playlist. Maybe it's reaching out to someone and saying, hey, I need support. These are not strict routines. They're gentle suggestions that you made for yourself, and you did it when your brain was calmer. When you remove just a few daily decisions, your brain has energy left for the things that matter. It's like clearing apps off your phone so it runs faster. You're not becoming a robot here. You're becoming a better ally to yourself. That's the whole point of this system, by the way. Not to force you to be more productive, but to help you feel less overwhelmed so you can be productive in the areas that count. So if you've been feeling stuck or scattered or completely overwhelmed, consider this. Maybe you don't need more discipline. Maybe your brain is just overchoiced. Even simple things like showering, cooking, having a conversation, all cost spoons. And once they're gone, they're gone. But here's the part we always choose to ignore. The number of spoons that we start with every day changes day to day. It's not like waking up with a fresh 12-count set in the drawer every day. Some days you might start with 5, and some days you're lucky to find 1. And occasionally, there are days where you wake up feeling like you're already in spoon debt, like you're starting in the negative and just trying to claw your way to 0. This variability isn't just physical. It manifests across all 3 energy types. Maybe your body feels decent today, but mentally you're pretty foggy. Or emotionally, you are maxed out because you had an argument with someone yesterday. Or maybe all 3 are crashing at once, and then just brushing your teeth feels like too much. That is spoon variability in action. It's unpredictable, and that unpredictability is friggin' exhausting. Look, if you don't live with chronic illness, neurodiversity, or pain management issues, it might be really hard to grasp just how quickly spoons disappear, or how much energy it takes those of us dealing with these things to finish tasks that other people think should be easy. But for those of us who do live with this reality, spoon variability is just a way of life. It has nothing to do with motivation or willpower. It is about capacity. You can want to get things done with every fiber of your being, but legitimately not have enough fuel in the tank to make it happen. And this is where this planning system becomes so important, because when you keep planning your days without allowing for spoon variability, you are setting yourself up to fail. Because a to-do list that worked great on a high energy day just becomes a guilt trip on a low energy one. And when that happens over and over and over again, it starts to chip away at your confidence. You stop trusting yourself and you stop believing your own plans. Instead, we need to start treating our energy levels the way we treat the weather. You don't get angry at yourself when it rains. You grab an umbrella and you adjust your plans. The same goes for spoons. If you only have 2 spoons today, it doesn't make any sense to plan a 10-spoon day. That doesn't mean that you can't still get things done, but it does mean being thoughtful about what you can do with the energy you do have. This is why tracking your energy is so essential, because it can help identify patterns in spoon variability. I mean, there's still going to be surprises, because no matter how self-aware you are, your body and your brain are always going to be affected by things outside of your control. Things like the actual weather or your sleep, stress, illness, sensory overload, and plain randomness. And when those days hit, the goal is not to push through. The goal is to adapt with compassion. This is where having an energy reset menu or a low spoon day plan can be a total game changer, because it gives you pre-chosen options for what to do when your tank is empty. Things that are gentle, doable, but still move your needle forward. And even more important, it helps you break the loop of shame that often comes with unpredictable energy, because you're not failing, you're flexing. Spoon variability is not a weakness. Again, it's just data. It is your body and your brain doing their best to survive in a world that is not designed for fluctuating capacity. And once you accept that your spoons are going to vary and start planning accordingly, you free yourself from the pressure to be consistent in a way that's just not realistic. So instead of asking yourself, why can't I do what I did yesterday? The better question becomes, what can I do with the capacity I have today? That is how you stay in sync with your energy instead of fighting it. And honestly, that is where everything starts to change. Now let's talk about those days when you wake up and you just know today is not going to be a high-functioning day. You're running on fumes. Your body feels heavy. Your brain is scrambled. And your emotions are completely numb or bubbling over for no apparent reason. These are the I've got nothing left days. And the truth is, most of us don't plan for them because we don't want to believe they're going to happen, but they do. Another mistake that we make is trying to power through those days. We use plans that were set up by a version of us that had way more energy than we have now in the moment. That version might have been hopeful and motivated and, dare I say, optimistic. But that person does not exist today. And trying to live up to their expectations when you are completely spent is like trying to run a marathon with no shoes. It's not gonna go well. And worst of all, it's going to feel like your fault that it didn't. That is why it is so important to build plans that have contingency options. Things that you can fall back on when your energy bottoms out. Think of it like an emergency kit, and you don't want to build it when you are in the middle of that emergency. You want it prepped ahead of time, so it's ready to go for the version of you that cannot even lift a finger, let alone reorganize a task list. And you're going to start by asking, what does completely spent look like for me? Is it a physical thing where even walking to the bathroom feels like being asked to sprint a mile in PE class? Is it mental, like you're not even able to string 2 thoughts together? Or is it emotional, where every commercial is making you cry and you just want to hide out under a blanket on the couch for the rest of the day? Maybe it's all 3. That's okay, because the goal here is just awareness. Once you have identified your version of completely spent, you can start creating what I like to call a bare minimum menu. This is not a to-do list. It's more like a toolkit of low effort, low demand actions that support you when you are at your lowest capacity. These are the things that you can do when everything else feels hard. It might be things like heating up a frozen meal if cooking dinner is too much. It could be replying to an email with a pre-written script, or it could just be sitting by an open window for 5 minutes and breathing deeply. The key is to remove decision making as much as possible from the equation. Because when you are that depleted, the effort that it can take to figure out what to do next can feel almost as big as doing the tasks themselves. So this is where planning ahead really pays off. Because if you've already created a list of gentle, no pressure options, you don't even have to think. You just pick one. And if even picking from a pre-made list is too much, throw a dart, roll a die, flip a coin. The point is not to try to start from scratch when you are already in survival mode. And let's be very, very clear. Productivity on these types of days may just look like taking a nap. It may look like hydrating. It could look like canceling a meeting. None of that is about giving up. It is about adapting to where you are. It's choosing sustainability over burnout. Because pushing through when you're already depleted is not noble. It is self-destructive. And you do not need more pressure. You need more tools. Another thing that's really helpful is to build in no energy plans into your weekly routine. So it's not there just in response to a crash, but it's built into how you plan anyway. Think of it as like weatherproofing your life. You don't wait until it's storming to buy an umbrella. You keep it by the door because you know storms happen. And the same goes for your energy. Give yourself permission to create plans that are flexible, that can shift depending on the kind of day you're having. Not every plan has to be ambitious. Sometimes the most powerful plan is the one that says, today I will rest. So the next time you are completely spent, please remember that you do not have to do it all. You don't even have to do most of it. You just need to take care of yourself with the same compassion that you would give to someone that you love. Your energy is not a moral scoreboard, and your worth is never tied to how much you get done, especially not on days where just existing is hard enough. Now, I'm going to be that guy again, and I'm going to remind you that I have printables in my planner shop that can help you build out these lists and these menus. Again, you don't have to purchase anything to use this system, but please feel free to at least go look at those images and see examples of what this kind of thing can look like for you. And then if you can't or don't want to buy these principles, you can recreate them in your own notebooks or in your planner. Now, in the next video, we're going to talk about how to shift your energy, not by guilting yourself into action, but by exploring ways to gently lift your energy without pressure. We'll talk about things like false urgency, when it's okay to push and when you need to pause. And we'll go over a whole menu of small energy boosters that actually work. It's going to be a good one. So make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss it. And before we go, I just want to say how proud of you I am. Seriously, you're here. You're showing up for yourself. You are learning how to plan with compassion. And that is no small thing. I see how hard you're trying. And I hope you know how deeply you are seen, valued, and how much I love you. You do not have to hustle your way to worthiness. You are already enough. And if today's version of progress looks like drinking a Diet Coke and just opening your planner, that still counts. I love you so much, and I will see you next time. Bye.